Welcome to XConnect. My name is Karim Kanji. We are here live at the Work Republic up in the north end of Toronto, what some people might call Scarborough.
Yep.
But we're here with our guest Raymond Kao, who's a founder of half a dozen things. We'll get to that in a bit. But we need to thank some of our partners and our sponsors. I'd like to thank Big Time Design and Communications, as always, for their wonderful design and web work, as well as thirdocean for their social media and community management work. And again, Shadaling Chung, as always, on the other side of the camera, who is our producer. And a reminder, we are announcing today that on Wednesday, May the 30th, is our next event, our next panel event. You can find out more information at educonnect.eventbrite.com. The whole month of May, we will be studying how education and technology are impacting each other, and it's going to be a great study over the course of the month, culminating in the event on Wednesday, May the 30th. Hope to see everybody out. And Ray, thank you so much.
Kareem, pleasure.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me on.
I was going to say thank you for coming to the studio, but this is your space.
Yeah, I came
Yes.
about 2 feet
Yeah.
to make it here.
But no, I guess thanks for inviting me to come here and film.
You're always
this.
welcome here, man. Always welcome.
So why don't we start off with this space here, the Work Republic? How did this space, how did you decide to put together this space, and really what is the Work Republic?
Well, first of all, the Work Republic is a co-working center. Co-working is sort of more like an ideology, shared workspace among freelancers, about building community. It's really about giving someone an alternative to working out of a coffee shop or their home office. And it's a good environment. People from different professions come and work together, and great ideas happen out of it.
It seems to be over the past couple of years, at least, that I've seen that the whole concept and idea of co-working has really grown and gained a lot of traction. And in Toronto, you find most of them in the downtown area, or close to subways and such. This is a little bit different. We're up here at the corner of Victoria Park and McNichol. There's a few industrial places around, mostly residential. Why this area?
For us, it was about building sort of like that downtown culture out in Scarborough, or at least in the suburbs. We found that a lot of people who are in startups now or want to get into it are having to commute downtown because that's just a place to be. But for us, there's no reason necessarily that has to be. I mean, everyone's talent and skills, like you bring that with you. So regardless if you're downtown or if you're in the suburbs, startups can't happen. So why here? Why not here, really?
Okay.
We're not that far out from the subway line. There's a lot of talented people out here in the suburbs. Everyone here so far is just around the corner. And we just wanted to make some cool stuff happen out here. Downtown has, a lot going for it, but, it can be done in the suburbs as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And there's also some events that take place here, or that have taken place. Well, what sort of events, what sort of people are in and out of the space?
So most of our events are tech-oriented. We ourselves run an event called Mobile Startups TO.
Okay.
We also run a second location downtown. But it's mostly tech-centric. Since we also run a web and mobile agency out of here as well, we tend to focus along those lines. We really think, giving back to the community in terms of our meetup groups, teaching as much as we can, trying to inspire as much as we can. Our events are focused around community. Yeah.
So Mobile Startups TO, let's touch a little bit about that. What's that all about?
So Mobile Startups TO is a meetup group about starting your own mobile startup, meaning you're creating apps on native devices, smartphones, you're creating web apps of some sort. But it's really about telling people who are interested into the field how they would build their platforms, how they would use the technology, and most importantly, a lot of people coming out are developers. They don't really have as much business acumen as they probably should. Part of the meetup is also to tell them, how to play with pricing, right? Marketing is a big part of the whole, strategy behind launching an app, because you can't just create an app, develop it, and then build it and people will buy it. There's a whole campaign behind it to get the word out about it. So we recently we had a speaker, Rob Lejama, who just
Yes.
launched Instamatch.
Mm-hmm.
We had him speak about his whole process, about creating the app all the way to releasing it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to have more of those ones going forward.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And talking about things that you conduct here, there's also you've also brought the Yorkville Media Center north here.
Correct.
Why don't you talk a little bit about that and what's that all about, and who's attending, that sort of stuff.
So the Yorkville Media Center was started by our good friends down at Bean Oceans.
Mm-hmm.
It's been running for, I believe, 5 seasons.
Mhm.
They call them. We brought the past winter season. It was being run parallel downtown at Bean Oceans headquarters at the YMC, and here as well. The YMC is basically free sessions, 9-week program that teaches HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and intro WordPress, so that the students attending can build their own sites powered by WordPress.
And it's a free course,
Completely free.
people to attend and really learn how to build cool stuff.
That's right. That's right.
Interesting. And so that's the Work Republic and everything that goes on here. Where can people find out more information about Work Republic?
Work Republic, you can search theworkrepublic.ca. You can also go to coworkingtoronto.ca as well to find other co-working centers. But for us, Work Republic, it's theworkrepublic.ca.
Awesome. And you guys have really been instrumental in really helping a lot of startups kind of really get things going. And that's kind of where I want to go next with our conversation. You're involved in things like Day for Two, Zeus River, LearnToronto.org. Let's first talk about Day for Two. I believe you're a co-founder there.
Right.
One of the other founders is sitting in the back over here,
Yeah,
Maurice. So what's Day for Two all about?
So Day for Two is a neat little app that helps you plan and organize dates with your significant other or friends.
Mm-hmm.
The idea behind it is, you're trying to plan all the different items in the day, where to go, where to eat, that sort of thing. We were kind of pivoting at this moment to really be a date suggestion site, if you will, right?
Okay.
At first, our idea is it's the inventory for first dates kind of thing. But we find that the biggest problem is that people just don't know where to go on any given date, right?
Sure.
So we just shoot them a suggestion, a list of items to do, and then they can choose to customize their date if they want.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so what was your role in building that app?
So I came in a little bit later.
Okay.
I joined on as the new technical partner on the site. My role is actually currently growing it for scale.
Okay.
So we would ultimately like to work with other companies and brands to use it as a sort of value-added service within their existing system. So for us, although the site works fine on its own now, and the first technical co-founder Jay did a great job. Like, it's fantastic, but it's just the issue is it's not scalable.
Okay.
So my job currently is to get it to the point where we could blast it out to as many cities as we want to, and to as many companies as we want, and white label it, and it sort of grows very well that way.
Interesting. And then there is Zeus River.
Correct.
What's Zeus River?
Zeus River is a mobile and web agency that I run out of the Work Republic with my partner Milan Gokle. We like to think of ourselves, so our strategy is to promote ourselves as a mobile and web agency, but really we are trying to be the technology partners for any business, right?
Okay.
We could easily run a business, and we're good at it, just create, apps.
Sure.
We could do that. But the idea is that we want to get in, work with you long term, and really solve your problems for life, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, our initial in is about web and mobile, but everyone has a website. Everyone says that they don't need any more apps, which we understand. But the underlying thing is that you have a technology problem that you want to solve. We are really bright guys. We have a team of X many guys that we bring on. Every single person is passionate about something.
Yeah.
And the whole idea about what we want to bring is to solve complicated problems.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then you've got one of your latest projects, which is LearnToronto.org.
Right.
How did it? Tell me a little bit about what is LearnToronto.org? What kind of problem is it looking to solve it, and why was it something that you decided that this is something you needed to do?
So LearnToronto.org came out of the last season, the YMC. Well, a couple of our students here said that they really loved the YMC and they wanted to continue learning. Their problem is that they could Google something, but it wasn't like a continuous program. It would solve and teach them how to solve a problem that they had in mind, specifically.
Okay.
But it's not like when you go to school, you have a progression path
Mm-hmm.
in learning. So LearnToronto.org is sort of trying to do a couple things in different phases. So phase one, list all the different events that are going on. So if a student is really interested after doing the YMC and they wanted to do, say, JavaScript specifically, they could find the JavaScript meetups, right? Go to those meetups and find out more along those paths. In our second and third phases, we're going to be rolling out basically a teaching and learning platform.
Okay.
Right, where members of the community here in Toronto
Mhm.
can actually start listing their own tutorials on the site. This gives them an outlet to be recognized as subject matter expert, and
Okay.
it also gives the students a chance to follow a teaching path, right, or learning path,
Mhm.
right? So it's not just like, here's a tutorial on how to do X. It's
Mhm.
this is why you would do X, and X would lead you to Y,
Mhm.
right? So you can actually see the pattern of what's going on and build upon your skills.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I think when you were starting to build it, there was also some talk about integrating all the other meetups
Yeah.
that are going around in the Toronto area. Has that been implemented already, or?
We just rolled out on Sunday nights, so
Okay.
I'm working with a small group of organizers that already run the meetup groups.
Mhm.
The intent is that it's sort of like a peer-based administration, if you will.
Okay.
So we recognize that these organizers are thought leaders in their particular area.
Mhm.
They're credible, so there's reputation built into the whole idea.
Mhm.
And what we're trying to do slowly over time is that they will add their meetup groups or groups that they are part of to the
Mhm.
listing, so that we know that these are quality events that are happening, right? These are quality people who are running it. What you're going to be learning is of value to you. I mean, because they're, as great as Meetup is, there's no filtering system like that built into it, right?
Anyone can set something up.
Anyone can set something up, and that's great. There's, it's fantastic for freedom, but you don't really know which groups are good or not.
Okay.
And there are groups out there that, for lack of a better way of saying it, a little bit scammy,
Okay.
right? So we're trying to figure a way to reduce that for the fine folks in Toronto.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, if somebody were to go onto your LinkedIn profile and see all of these, founder of Day for Two, founder of Zeus River, Work Public, program coordinator, YMC, LearnToronto.org, all these different things, they go, Ray, what the heck do you do with yourself? You're involved in all these sorts of things. You're getting married soon. You're a busy guy. How you're involved in so many things. So many businesses, so many ventures, so many opportunities. There's a bunch of questions that can come out of that. But number one, why? Why are you involved with all of these different projects?
I just love them all. I think it's the idea that's been, or I guess the feeling that's been coming out lately is the whole builder mentality, right?
Mm.
That's what I'm trying to aspire to do. It's just to constantly build really cool stuff.
Mm.
And everything that I'm involved in accomplishes that for me, right? I get involved, I can help contribute back to the community and just make sure that all these visions come true, right? Get hands-on and just make it.
Nice. And what sort of things people might say, okay, what are you learning here? You're building some good stuff. Some of these projects are focused on different things. Work Republic's about building a community here. Zeus River is about solving technology problems. Day for Two is a suggestion engine. What sort of lessons are you learning as an entrepreneur, in these various projects? Is it certain things you learn from one project, or is there general things that you're learning altogether?
Yeah, each one has its own different learning, so can't really generalize everything necessarily. Planning is key. I mean, I think they'll tell you that from the get-go. I mean, a lot of these projects started out with a lot of, passion behind it, but not necessarily a whole lot of planning.
Okay.
And it's once you start getting into it, I guess, right? Because out from start, you want to start building it right away. Build.
Sure.
But you have to have a strategy behind it, and I guess, that would be the biggest lesson out of it. And as we speak with more entrepreneurs, like when we have our mobile service meetup, that seems to be a recurring theme, is that you have to have a strategy that comes out of it. So if I were to focus just building apps in general.
Sure.
Building is probably the easiest part in terms of the strategy, right? It's
Okay.
very structured. You have a course on how you're actually going to build the app. But again, when it comes back to strategy, there's the business side of the strategy, and that's the part actually I'm learning on a daily basis because, as much as I'd like to think that I do pretty well in it,
Sure.
there's a lot to learn in that area, and it's far more complicated than a lot of people give it credit for.
A lot of people talk about finding a technical co-founder, and you're talking about some of the problems that you're facing is on the business side of things.
Yeah.
What value would you put on? Would you put the same value and the same emphasis on, if there's a guy that wants to build a cool app, then maybe he or she needs to team up or at least understand the business side of things. What's your thoughts about that?
100%. It's equal split down the center,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, if you have a terribly made product, nothing will happen out of it, right? Like you can't sell it.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, if you have a great product and you can't sell with beans, you've also got nothing as well, right? So they go hand in hand in very equal parts, right? Yeah.
Interesting. Recently, a bunch of you guys here went on a trip to, was it Western, I think?
Correct.
Tell me about that. How did that start, and what was the experience like, and what did you guys talk about? What are some of the takeaways there?
So it was an amazing experience. Millen, the co-founder at Zeus River, got in contact with one of his old professors, who is now the director of software engineering, Dr. Summer Ubuntu.
Okay.
And
At Western University?
At Western University,
Okay.
yep. We were invited to go and speak to his first and second year students. It was open to all students, but that was the target group. The idea was to encourage them, or at least give them insight into what they can do with software engineering, right?
Okay.
A lot of them choose to go into mechanical or electrical engineering, and it seems to be that fewer and fewer are actually making software. Now,
do you think, is there a reason behind that? Did you guys learn anything in regards to why engineering students are making that decision?
I think it has to do a lot with how universities, I guess, teach their students to progress in life.
Okay.
The idea is that when you finish school, you would ultimately work for a corporation, and it's about stability. And generally, manufacturing and electronics tend to be more stable than most, right?
Sure.
And it's about prestige too. So it's perception that they try to teach you in school. Software engineering, not so much. Like it's not really like the it place, I guess, in like academic circles or in those kind of professional circles.
You think these days everyone would want to be involved in software?
Well, that's a funny thing too. I mean, they don't teach so startups, right? We're
Sure.
thinking about startups when we say everyone wants to be in software.
Yeah.
That's really for people who sort of fell into software engineering or programming in general after school, or they've been doing it as a hobby and they just love doing it, and maybe they never got formally trained in doing it. So those people kind of learned it on their own. Whereas if you were to go through school, they don't really teach you entrepreneurship in an engineering course. They might have touched on it, they might have said that's an option, but it's not really taught. So you don't really get that bug until afterward, right? And what we were trying to do when we got to Western was to reach out to those kids who kind of I have an inkling for it. I heard about starting my own business, but they're not teaching this in school.
Sure.
So us as a panel, it was again Rob Jama, our friend Srini back there, and myself, and Millen was moderating.
Okay.
We're really there to speak to ourselves 10 years ago, right? And to find us then and say, listen, you have a different option, you have a different path to go into, and it's definitely doable. And there were quite a few students, more than I was expecting, that were they were really on top of their game. They were already talking about things like Meteor.js, which just came out last week, and they were already all over it. They were talking about lean startups, that methodology, which is interesting because I don't even know where they would have found it. I wouldn't have found it if I didn't know lean coffee here in Toronto.
Yeah.
So to see that students there were already on the ball with that, just goes to show that they're there. They just need to be nurtured.
What's the biggest reason you feel that students today are still hesitant to want to go down that route of starting their own business?
So I think outside of actual business courses, which I think a lot of people telling you if they went to business school, there's still a gap there in terms of teaching them entrepreneurship.
Yeah. That's more about how to manage a business.
What about, yeah, and again,
Rather
in
than
corporate
starting it up,
setting,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like traditional, you work at one job for the rest of your life kind of thing.
True.
I think the biggest reason why kids don't get into it is because their parents, first of all, who love them, sent them to university because they want a better life for them. They want to make sure that they're, financially stable and all this. And, inherently being a startup or an entrepreneur, like it's hit or miss, man, right? Like, and it's most of the time it's a miss.
True.
Right? I think one of the best examples of startups in general, which is really popular now, aside from software, is restaurants, right? But if you take a look at restaurants, everyone's into it, like the food culture is like hitting it big. But like the failure rate in restaurants is ridiculous.
It's huge.
Yeah.
I used to work out of Little Italy on College Street, and literally, there'd be one location every 3 months. It'd be a different restaurant.
Yeah, the changeover, like, it's huge. So I think that's the biggest thing, really. Like, I mean, there's no stability in it. It's a gamble, and to me, I really think that's probably the biggest factor. And aside from that, also, it's just that people aren't confident in terms of their skills, right? They're taught to really like go out, work for a company, learn all you can from them first before trying. Otherwise, if you were to go into it ahead of time before really going in the real world, you're like they basically tell you you're going to fail, right? But there's no guarantees. Even if you did work for a corporation, then you decide to jump ship.
For sure, you never know.
You never know.
So, imagine yourself right now. You're at Western. You're talking to these same kids.
Yeah.
3 tips that you'd give them in terms of, guys, girls, you really need to learn or to understand these 3 things. What advice would you give these engineering students who may have thought about software engineering, may have thought about that sort of stuff, but maybe hesitant? What advice would you tell them?
Number 1, networking. And that's like person-to-person networking, not computer networking. It's huge. I mean, like I mentioned it there at the panel that myself 10 years ago, I was the guy sitting in the back classroom. I just didn't I was too shy to speak to anyone. Now it's a little bit different because the more you meet people, the more confident maybe not confidence, but the more comfortable you are speaking with other people. The more people you really realize that everyone's pretty much the same, right? Everyone's got their own insecurities, and no one's more confident or more successful than you are.
Sure.
Right? And when you realize that, it sort of gives you that ability to, again, reach out and do more. Right? So networking is very key, not because you're growing a network, but because it gives you that experience to speak. And public speaking is another big thing, I guess I'll group in there as well.
Okay.
Second, from the engineer side of things, at least from what I've been told from people who've gone through an engineering program, try to develop the skills in developing software, right? The theory behind it. Not necessarily so we were asked a lot of questions when we were there about what language should I choose, what platform should I do it on, right? And the idea is not to focus on one language in particular. The idea is to hone the craft overall about building, right? So if you were, trying to train someone to be a carpenter, they're like, should I work with cherry wood or should I work with oak?
Yeah.
Because cherry is very popular right now, and oak is, I'm not even sure if those are things that people consider, but it's the same principles. It's not really about what material you're crafting with.
Sure.
It's about the idea of, developing that skill, how to work with wood, for example, right? Or how you would mold things. How would you put things together in order to deliver an end product, right? And that's a really important thing to focus on, right? We were bringing the panel in, and Srini actually said at one point that it doesn't really matter what language you should learn. What you should be making right now is what's popular and what will make you money, right? Forget about all the other stuff that you think is cool, right? Just focus on that. So really honing the craft is more important. A third thing is, especially from, I guess, the technical side of things, or the skill set that actually delivers the product, learn the business side, right?
Interesting.
Not to say that we should do everything, but you should have an understanding. It goes both ways, right? Your business partner, your business co-founder should have some understanding of what really goes into building this craft, right? They should focus on sales, should focus on making connections with people, the whole sales cycle, but they should have an understanding of what actually goes into it. And similarly, from the technical side, you should have an understanding of how long does that sales cycle actually take, right?
Sure.
Just because you tell someone to go out and sell doesn't mean they're going to come back with 10, 15 people lined up willing to buy your product.
That's right.
Right? So that's part of it. And also, just understanding, cost. How should you, structure everything, right? Just because you think it's worth $100 and you can only sell to like 20 people, right? That maybe that math doesn't work out. You got to readjust and rejig and kind of figure out how that whole process works.
These are awesome lessons, Ray, for entrepreneurs, whether they're in tech or whatever the case may be. It's interesting, though, that out of those three, only one of them had to do with technology. The other two, networking and understanding business, could be applied to anything, any sort of business. So let's wrap up this. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Really appreciate the time. I got a bunch of websites I want to mention here of the projects that you're involved in. Check out dayfor2.com, zeusriver.com, theworkrepublic.ca, learntoronto.org, mobilestartupsto.com. Is there anything else?
Yorkville Media Center.
Yorkville Media Center.
.com.
.com as well. So go check those out. We'll make sure that we have the links to all of those in the show notes. Again, this is Raymond Kao. My name is Karim Kanji. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, thanks to Big Time Design, Third Ocean, Chatelaine Chung, and don't forget to stay plugged into our series on education and technology. You can check out educonnect.eventbrite.com. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk with you soon.